Welcome to Let's Get Rash. This is the podcast that says what your boss won't and what your employees wish they could. Work sucks today because leadership sucks and no one wants to say it out loud. I'm Jessica, a former insider turned leadership coach and the author of Let's Get Rash about leadership. I'm not here to be nice, I'm here to be real. Let's get rash about it. Today we're talking about hiring. And even if you're currently not looking for a job, listen in anyway because this affects all of us. I've noticed this almost like a glazed over look in people's eyes when I mention how awful job hunting is today. And I realized why. They are confused as to how I'm linking hiring to leadership, which I will talk about here later. And they also haven't had to look for a job recently, so they just have no idea of how bad it really sucks out there. Which is great for them, but they still need to know. Everyone does. Because some of you are out there weighing in on how easy it is to find a job today. And you're judging folks who are actually out there grinding every single day. I used to be critical of job seekers myself. How hard can it be? It's easy, just apply. Nobody wants to work anymore. I used to say all of that same stuff until I found myself in the same boat. I'd had a job for years and years and years, and then I relocated and found myself in the job-seeking world. It was awful. I thought with over 20 years of experience that I would have no issue finding a job. Not true. And then I tried to get around the system by printing my resumes and taking them into people or mailing my resumes in. The times that I took my resumes into companies, I was met with a bitchy attitude and it's all online now. I eventually took a position that was $20,000 less than what I was used to because that's how hard it is out there. And I now have respect and compassion for anyone who is in the job-seeking world because it is honestly horrible. It's awful, and it doesn't have to be. I dedicated an entire chapter to hiring in my book, Let's Get Rash About Leadership, which is now available on Amazon. You can also find the link on my website at rashlead.com. But I want to lay out some facts for you. First and foremost, for job seekers, job hunting is a full-time job on its own. Let's pretend that you're looking for a job right now. Here's how it goes. See, at first, it's actually kind of exciting. You'll scroll through thousands of options on job boards like LinkedIn, Glassdoor, ZipRecruiter, or Indeed. And all these platforms will have you thinking that it's really just as simple as hitting apply with a template resume. By the way, don't do that, it will get you nowhere. You usually will need to apply directly with the company's website. See, in the beginning of the hunt, you'll feel like you have the luxury of choosing jobs that really fit your situation. You'll research the company, envision yourself working there, and then you hit apply. That's when all the fun stops. See, you'll be asked to create a personalized account, type every detail from your resume into their system, and then upload that same resume, which will probably be rejected if you dare to be creative with it. So for beginners, this can be brutal. On average, it takes about 2.5 hours to apply for a single job, and that's before you even get to any of the additional demeaning requirements like essay questions. See, I mentioned this in other videos, but here is where I really want to paint a picture for you. You'll be expected to answer essay questions seriously. Like, describe a time when you faced a challenge. My answer? I only need 2 words. This shit. What's an area for improvement you've identified in yourself? My answer? Patience. What attracted you to our organization? I don't want to veer off too far, but that last question, when asked in essays or even in the interview, please, we're sick of this question. The game of pretending that we all grew up dreaming of working for your company is getting pretty old. Let's answer this the right way. I need a job and you're hiring. That's what attracted me to your company. Prior to this listing, never even heard of your company. Some companies also require a personality test to apply. And many of them will ask conflicting questions like, what best describes you? Pick one. A, I like to keep my workspace neat and organized, or B, a little mess doesn't bother me. Well, if you picked, I like to keep my workspace neat and organized, that would be wrong, because now they think you're a rigid, uptight a-hole. Another example, A, I rarely make mistakes at work, or B, I sometimes overlook small details when I'm busy. Well, if you picked, I rarely make mistakes at work, wrong answer. You just told the company that you lack self-awareness. It is honestly so stupid and degrading. At this point, I think I'd be less offended if they asked what my astrology sign was. And just a reminder, this is still not the interview, guys. This is just the application. Some companies require skill assessment tests, depending on the role. That's right, a timed quiz or an exercise just to prove that you have the skills that you said you have. Other companies will do situational judgment tests, where they will give you questions with obvious answers, but those are actually wrong. For example, you see a coworker leaving 2 hours early every day without clocking out. Do you A, report it to your boss, or B, confront your coworker and see if you're misunderstanding it? Look, none of us are proud of being a narc, but the obvious answer that an employer would expect is to report it to your boss. But that would be wrong. And again, guys, this is all before the interview. A lot of companies today are asking for video submissions. That's right, they want you to record yourself either answering specific questions or just telling them about yourself. Everything about a video submission screams discriminatory, but it's not. It's legally protected. And let's get rash about discrimination real fast. As long as you're not told that you weren't hired based on how you look, the company's always going to be safe. For most of us, the video submission is one of the most demeaning things imaginable. Now, I know we live in a time where people love themselves enough to fill their phones with pictures of their own faces, but that isn't me. I've only complied with a video submission once, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it took me 3 hours to record a 3-minute video. Again, all of this before a single live interview. So put that all together and you've just burned about 4 to 5 hours on one application. So now that you know just how awful it is to apply, let's talk about how hard it is to try to find a job to apply for. Here in Idaho, the state that I live in, and about 35 others, there are no requirements for pay to be listed on a job posting. So we get to scroll through postings and just try to decipher what they might pay. And guess what? Job seekers can't ask because that makes them seem greedy. Employers are living in a world pretending that pay is not the most important part of the job hunt. But the truth, it is the most important part. It's the whole point. See, pay is left off intentionally, hoping to lure someone in at a much lower wage. The irony? This strategy wastes everyone's time, especially the employers. They're interviewing candidates who will never accept the rate that they are willing to offer. It's ridiculous. Sometimes the job boards don't even match the company's own website. There are inconsistencies in the postings. I saw one yesterday. They listed the perks, the benefits, the hours, everything you need to know, except, again, the pay. The social media post said it was full-time. The company website said it was part-time. What the hell are you guys doing? Some companies will even call you months after you apply. One I applied for in July called me in December for an interview. I mean, come on. As a job seeker, you will feel humbled and frankly embarrassed that in the beginning of your job search, you dared to be selective because you still had your blinders on, because you just didn't know the facts. You know, facts like that 28% of the jobs that you applied for were fake. They were ghost jobs. What are ghost jobs? Fake jobs. There are jobs that had no intention of ever hiring you. Why do they do that? Why do companies do that? A lot of reasons. One, to appease the overworked teams. They can say, see, look, we're trying to help you. We have this ad out there. They're also maybe a disorganized mess who forgot to take the posting down. Or maybe the posting is just a formality to comply with HR. See, they already know who they're hiring, and it isn't you. Or they're gathering intel for a job that they're bidding on, like a government contract. And then there's the most common reason. And listen carefully because this one is the most nefarious of them all. It's to look like they're growing. They want to impress investors, maybe get a loan from a bank, or they want to impress their competition. Either way, they're not hiring you, and now you've spent 4 hours applying at this company. When you were still excited, you didn't know yet that you were up against thousands of job listings with completely inaccurate pay scales. You know the ones, they say $70,000 a year to $120,000. But in the interview, they offer you $50,000 because they never had any intentions of paying $70,000. They just wanted to attract higher caliber candidates. As a job seeker, you're going to learn a new skill. Write it down and slap it on your resume. You're going to become fluent in decoding bullshit. Because you're going to become an expert at decoding after seeing inflated titles like director with 0 employees or no budget authority, or a regional manager managing 1 location, or an office manager who's really just an administrative assistant. The titles aren't fooling anyone, guys. They're just the first sign that you're dealing with a D-bag employer. You also didn't know yet that the qualifications section of the job posting was going to be so hilarious. After reading the responsibilities and seeing the pay, the qualifications read like a bad comedy skit. Now, I know some of you are not going to believe me, so I pulled a real job posting from my city yesterday in Boise, Idaho. Here it is. Director, full-time position. Let me sum up the responsibilities so I don't bore you to death. It's run safe, high-quality programs, support staff and volunteers, build strong member relationships, and to make sure that everything meets the highest standards. The responsibilities are basically equivalent to any job. The requirements? A bachelor's degree. The pay? Here's where it's comical. $41,000 to $52,000. Doesn't matter because no one's getting the high end. That's $19.70 an hour. Then comes the preferred requirements. Preferred master's degree and a certification in the XYZ software. Shut the hell up. No one cares what you prefer. I wonder how long a college graduate is going to stick around at $19.70 an hour. Right now, today, student loan payments average $536 a month in the United States. And to the lucky winner of that director position, good luck paying that on top of rent, car payments, insurance, and a cell phone with $19.70 an hour. Another thing you don't realize yet is that there's a pretty big chance that you're going to be sharing your wage with a recruiter. A talent acquisition partner. Yep. The employer has outsourced their responsibility, and now they're paying 15 to 25% of your agreed salary to this person. So if you agreed to $60,000 a year, or about $29 an hour, your recruiter is going to pocket $9,000. So don't expect a raise next year, or maybe anytime soon. And by the way, that's not a slam to the recruiters. The other part of your job hunt is understanding ATS, applicant tracking systems, which are designed to save the employer time. Basically, it's a computer that reads your application. You don't know yet that you're going to need some tech skills to be a job seeker, even if the job has nothing to do with computers. See, to get through the application process, you have to be a wizard at gaming the system. Your resume needs to be ATS-friendly, stuffed with the right keywords, and formatted correctly. Basically, your resume has to look really boring. If your dates aren't in standard format, all your work is wasted. If your contact info is in the header instead of the main body, your application gets rejected immediately. And most of the time, you'll never even know it happened. The last thing that you don't realize when you're new to job hunting is that if you're using job boards for a competitive role, that you're probably going to need to apply for nearly 200 jobs just to land one actual job offer. See, the out-of-touch folks will say, well, don't use job boards at all, go to career fairs. And I've already covered this in episode 1, but for those of you who are new here, let me catch you up. Career or job fairs, those are a waste of time. Because every single booth just tells you to go to our website. The person standing there is not the decision maker. They're just another layer of insulation between you and the actual job. Networking is the other go-to for people trying to get around the system. And networking is effective. It has an 85% effective rate. The problem with it is if you're not connected, you're screwed. Take someone who's new to the area, screwed. Of course, you can join a traditional networking group and maybe attend conferences and industry events, but that all costs money that you don't have. So, sure, okay, but not super realistic. Some job seekers are spending $100 to $500 an hour with money they don't have on career coaches to navigate this hell. Again, not a slam on the career coaches. This episode is about highlighting the aggravation of applying. It's really just dance monkey dance out there. So now that you know the hell that is job seeking, you understand now how hard it is to find a job. When you see the amount of work that it takes just to apply, it makes one thing pretty painfully obvious. Companies could make this a lot easier by just listing the pay. It's the right way. I'm working on building support to change Idaho law to require companies to list salaries in job listings. That's it. I'm not asking for anything else. Other states have already done it. Why can't we? Job hunting is hard enough without having to guess how much a job pays. Today, everything is expensive, harder than it needs to be, and this part shouldn't have to be so difficult. I'm just asking that we give a little compassion to the job seekers. This is a nonpartisan issue. Red, blue, purple, we can all get on board with supporting Idaho job seekers. I'm looking for all voices, supporters, skeptics, and everyone in between. And look, hiring is leadership. It's the very first impression your company makes on a potential new employee. And bosses, this is absolutely your responsibility. Yet so many of you have handed this off to recruiters, to staffing agencies, or to HR. Stop. This is your job. You need to be a part of the hiring process. See, over the past 20 years, there's been this quiet movement where humans have intentionally distanced themselves from their staff, their clients, and even their customers. Here's a great example. One of the biggest selling points for investors to hire a property management company is so that the investor can distance themselves from their tenants. Why? Well, so they don't have to feel sympathetic when a tenant maybe loses their job or misses a payment or struggles, or maybe even has a genuine complaint about the property that needs addressed. See, this way, it's out of sight, out of mind. Or take real estate. Have you ever noticed that when you're buying or selling a home, there's almost an unspoken law that you cannot directly talk to the other party? Real estate agents will move mountains to keep you from connecting. Because if you meet a buyer or a seller who shares your values but maybe not your budget, it's going to hurt the deal. See, the system is designed to protect the transaction, not the people. HR is no different. The illusion that HR is there to help the employees? Wrong. Its real job is to protect the business. That distancing, that buffer, it's baked into the entire system. It's insulation for the bigwigs. A lot of people think that leadership and management are completely different things, that hiring just has nothing to do with leadership. That's HR or management. Processes and policies, that's all management, not leadership. You know, leaders are born. They're deep thinkers, visionaries, while managers just light a fire under people and leaders light a fire in people. Here's the problem. That's not realistic. No company that I have ever worked for, and probably not you either, is going to create a position just for leadership. You know, a job where you float around, sprinkling inspiration, watering your garden, producing more leaders, not followers, without actually managing them or being their boss. It's not going to happen. So if you have a problem with the word manager, don't use it. Call it supervisor, boss, head honcho, chief, people pilot. I don't give a shit. But leadership is the responsibility of the boss, period, end of story. Head over to rashly.com/pay and let me know what you think about requiring salaries on job postings in Idaho. Thank you for listening.